The Odyssey is the earliest work of literature that tells a story out of chronological order. This can make it confusing to follow. In this video, I'm going to give you a short plot summary, put back in chronological order. And I'm going to map out the 21 beats in Odysseus' journey, so you can notice them when you read. If you haven't read the poem yet, you don't need to worry about spoilers. Homer's unspoilable. The Greek audience knew the stories of the Iliad and the Odyssey from birth. The fun is in the details of these poems. You'll understand the poem better if you know the story before you read it, just like the Greeks did. Starting from the beginning, the Odyssey is the sequel to the Iliad. The Iliad tells a story of 1 month in the final year of the Trojan War. After 10 years of fighting, the Greeks defeat the Trojans. There's no country of Greece like we would think of it today. The Greeks are really a collection of city-states who had come together to fight in Troy. So when the war's over, they all split up to go home. Odysseus is from the island of Ithaca in the northwest of Greece, so he has a long journey home after the war. Odysseus and his men raid the Cicones people to take their treasure, but they linger too long. The Cicones counterattack, and Odysseus barely gets away. This is the first example of the foolishness of Odysseus and his men, which will keep delaying his journey home. This is a theme of the Odyssey that Zeus tells us right in Book 1, that man's foolishness compounds his miseries. Next, they reach the land of the Lotus Eaters, where some of Odysseus' men eat the fruit. The lotus fruit robs you of any desire to go home. It leaves you aimless, and you just sit there eating more fruit. Odysseus forces his men back onto the ships. Next, they reach the land of the Cyclopes. Cyclopes is the plural of Cyclops. They find a perfectly nice island across the harbor with an abundance of game that they can hunt and shrubs that they can harvest. But Odysseus just can't help himself. For no reason whatsoever, Odysseus and some of his men sail across the island onto the land of the Cyclopes. And they enter the cave of Polyphemus, a one-eyed giant and the son of the sea god Poseidon. Polyphemus traps them, and he eats a few of Odysseus' men. Odysseus escapes by getting Polyphemus drunk. When the Cyclops passes out, Odysseus blinds him, and he runs back to the ship. But as he sails away, Odysseus can't help but taunt Polyphemus. Odysseus reveals his true name to Polyphemus, so that Polyphemus will know that it was Odysseus who outsmarted him. Polyphemus prays to his father Poseidon to punish Odysseus, and the sea god Poseidon curses Odysseus' journey home. Odysseus then visits Aeolus, the keeper of the winds. Aeolus is a man who was given power over the winds by Zeus. Aeolus gives Odysseus a bag with all the storm winds, and with this control of the winds, Odysseus can sail straight home. But while Odysseus sleeps, his men open the bag, thinking there's treasure inside. The winds burst out and blow them back to Aeolus, who realizes these men are cursed by the gods. He refuses to help them again. They sail next to the land of the Laestrygonians, a race of giant cannibals. The Laestrygonians destroy 11 of Odysseus' 12 ships and eat some of his men. This is the theme. Only Odysseus' own ship escapes. With this one remaining ship, Odysseus reaches the island of the sorceress Circe. Circe turns some of his men into pigs, but the messenger god Hermes gives Odysseus a magical herb that protects him. Circe is impressed by Odysseus, and she restores his men. They stay with her for a year, and this time it's Odysseus' men who have to motivate him to leave and continue home. Circe tells Odysseus that before he can go home, he has to travel to the Underworld and consult the prophet Tiresias. Tiresias is a famous prophet from the story of Oedipus Rex. Odysseus goes there and speaks with the dead. Tiresias warns Odysseus not to harm the cattle of the sun god. Odysseus also sees his mother, he sees the great warrior Achilles, and he sees Agamemnon. And he's surprised to see Agamemnon because he didn't know he was dead. They fought together at Troy. Agamemnon warns Odysseus that he was killed by his wife when he returned home. His wife had taken up with a suitor, a man who had won her affection, and the two of them betrayed Agamemnon. This exchange sets up the tension of Odysseus' return home. Will his wife greet him warmly, or will she have taken up with one of the 108 suitors who court her hand in marriage? Odysseus leaves the underworld, makes a brief stop back at Circe's island to bury a friend, and Circe warns him again not to harm the sun god's cattle. Odysseus sails past the Sirens. these winged singers whose song reminds men of their past. That song lures men to dwell in the past forever. And this is another theme in the Odyssey: the comfort of the past, the unknown of the future, and why we choose to move forward. Odysseus plugs his crew's ear with beeswax, but he doesn't plug his own ears. He has his crew tie him up to the mast of the ship so he can hear the Sirens' song without following it. When they've cleared the land of the Sirens, Odysseus has to make an impossible choice. He has to pass between the two monsters, Scylla and Charybdis. If he sails too close to the whirlpool monster, Charybdis, his whole ship will be swallowed. So he sails closer to Scylla, the six-headed monster that snatches men from a ship. He loses 6 men, but he saves the ship. They reach the island of the sun god. Odysseus warns his men, he had been warned twice, not to touch the sacred cattle. But bad weather traps them. They're stuck there for a month, and they run out of food. And while Odysseus is sleeping, the starving men slaughter the cattle. As punishment, Zeus destroys their ship, and all of Odysseus' men die. Odysseus alone survives. He drifts back past Charybdis and eventually reaches the island of the immortal goddess Calypso. Calypso's infatuated with Odysseus, and she keeps him there for 7 years and offers him immortality if he stays with her. Odysseus refuses because he still wants to return to Ithaca and his wife Penelope. Back in Ithaca, Odysseus' house is being consumed by the Suitors. These men who want to marry Penelope take control of Odysseus' household and seize his wealth. Penelope delays them with her tricks, but she won't get rid of them because she doesn't know if Odysseus is coming home. And Odysseus' son, Telemachus, is now coming of age, but isn't powerful enough to drive the 108 men out of his home. The goddess Athena always favored Odysseus. Athena is the goddess of wisdom, so she loves how cunning Odysseus is. Athena persuades her father, Zeus, the king of the Olympian gods, to allow Odysseus to return home. The messenger god Hermes goes to Calypso's island and orders her to release Odysseus. Odysseus builds a raft and sails away, but the sea god Poseidon is still angry about his blind son, so he wrecks Odysseus' raft in a storm. Odysseus barely survives, and he washes ashore in Phaeacia. He wakes up in a forest and meets the princess Nausicaa. She helps Odysseus reach the palace, where he's welcomed by the Phaeacians. The Phaeacians sail Odysseus home to Ithaca. When he arrives in Ithaca, Athena disguises Odysseus as an old beggar, so he can test the situation before revealing himself. Remember, Agamemnon went home and said, "I'm here," and he got whacked by his wife. So in his disguise, Odysseus first goes to the hut of his loyal swineherd, Eumaeus. Odysseus' son, Telemachus, had been on his own journey, searching out news of his father. He went to Pylos and to Sparta to speak with the kings Nestor and Menelaus, whom Odysseus fought with at Troy. When Telemachus comes home to Ithaca, he too goes to the swineherd's hut. And this is where Odysseus reveals himself to his son. Together they plot the destruction of the Suitors. Odysseus enters his own palace disguised as a beggar. He's mocked and abused by the Suitors. His wife Penelope speaks with him, but we don't know for sure if she recognizes him through the disguise or not. This is the greatest mystery about the Odyssey. Does Penelope see through the disguise? Penelope, abruptly, decides the suiting has gone on long enough. She'll announce a contest. She'll marry the man who can string Odysseus' bow and shoot an arrow through 12 axe heads. The suitors fail. Odysseus, still disguised as a beggar, has a go. He strings the bow easily and makes the shot. He then reveals himself. "I'm home, baby." And he takes the arrows out of the quiver and starts picking off the suitors one by one. And it's an absolute massacre in the palace halls. But now that he's destroyed the suitors and the disloyal servants, he can restore order to his household. But his wife Penelope doesn't accept him right away. She says she needs to test him to make sure he really is Odysseus. This is another theme of the poem, identity. And here we have two characters who were once in love and who have been separated for 20 years. 10 years during the Trojan War, 10 years while Odysseus is trying to get home. Over that much time, people change, and relationships change. So when Penelope tests Odysseus after he's been away for so long, what is she looking for? What's that unchanging essence of Odysseus that will tell her after 20 years that this is her man. Penelope tests Odysseus by ordering their marriage bed to be moved. And Odysseus says that's ridiculous. He built the bed himself and it's tied to the frame of the house, so it can't be moved. And this proves his identity, and Penelope accepts him. The next day, Odysseus visits his father, who had been consumed by grief. And the sight of his son restores him with vitality. The families of the dead suitors gather to take revenge, and Odysseus and his son and his father all join forces to fight them. But before the violence erupts, Athena intervenes. She orders peace, and this completes Odysseus' homecoming. The last unresolved conflict is the sea god Poseidon's anger towards Odysseus. Now that he's completed his homecoming, Odysseus will go on another journey, inland. So far inland that the men there have never tasted the salt of the sea. And in that place, he'll make a sacrifice to the god Poseidon. We don't see this sacrifice in the Odyssey, but we know from the prophecies that Odysseus will complete it successfully. He'll journey home to Ithaca once again, and he'll die peacefully at an old age. The next video coming to this channel is going to be my 3-hour guide to the Odyssey. Subscribe so you don't miss it.